height with the mic stand. I think I got it pretty good.
That's pretty good, I think. Yeah, what do you think? Should it be a little lower, maybe?
It's pointing pretty squarely at your mouth, so I think you'll be fine.
Cool.
But in terms of, say, technique, these for these you kind of have to eat the mic. So like as close as you can without actually touching it, kind of.
Okay. So like that.
Although I suppose it depends on how soft spoken you are, also. So.
Ooh, it varies. It varies. There are moments I'm very, and there's others that I'm like, oh man, check out how cool this is.
This isn't the best place to be doing this. This is technically a conference room, but it was what I could gather at the time, and like, so like I would prefer to have chairs that are armless, so I can like get totally up to the tables and make sure I'm close enough to the mic to be able to pick up what I'm saying and stuff.
Yeah.
But also it's pretty hot in here. It feels it's real stuffy, and
yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen you without a hat on. I think you should take it before you start sweating all over everything.
Sure. Yeah, the hat's a thing.
Wait, what do you mean is a thing?
I just like wearing hats a lot. Like I have, so where do we start? So my mom knit me a beanie a long time ago, and so I used to wear that everywhere in the winter. And then my friend Tom, his mom made the same beanie, although it would curl up on the inside. So
okay.
Some people would call it the condom hat. But then I got this for Christmas, so I just have a thing with beanies in the winter.
Really?
Yeah. So yeah, nice and simple there.
So I'm glad you said in winter, because I was getting on the idea that you just wear hats even when it's real hot.
Oh no, I can't do that. No, it's if I wear a hat in the summer or when it's hotter, it's a baseball cap that says University of Hartford Dad. Yeah, that one goes back to my my freshman year roommates and friends. We most of us lived in Hawk Hall, and sophomore year we did for Secret Santa. Someone got me the University of Hartford Dad hat. And so I wear that around with pride, and my friends sometimes refer to me as Dad, because I was the most responsible out of all of them. Like freshman year, I didn't drink. I would be the designated driver. I would make sure that they got home safe, all that. So I got referred to as Dad ever since.
Andrew, what are you doing right now? Just dropping off the kids.
The worst thing was one had my parents' minivan for about a week, and they were like, "Dad, take us to soccer practice." Oh yeah, it was quite spectacular.
By soccer practice, they meant
anywhere. The grocery store.
Take us to rehearsal, Dad.
Oh man, yeah, we're all music majors, so yeah, that was definitely a thing. But yeah, so.
So what's going on? What's happening with you?
Not honestly, musically, everything is absolutely spectacular. I was really lucky. About a week and a half ago, I played a gig at, I don't know if you've ever heard of the venue, the Buttonwood Tree, which is in Middletown.
No.
It's an amazing venue. It's they're like a used bookstore. They have concerts.
Cool.
They support local artists. They have open mics. And so I got booked there. I worked really hard to reach out and show what I had to offer. They got me in, and I got lucky that I packed the house, and that's been opening up other possible opportunities for the future. So musically, things are going really great. I'm writing more and more music, and hoping to do some recording in the next, hopefully, year or two. So we'll see.
Cool. Who'd you play with?
So I played with my trio. So my trio right now features sophomore bassist Conway Campbell Jr., who's basically like my brother, because we're both from Worcester, Massachusetts.
Oh,
so we met each other when I was a senior in high school, and he also played. I have two younger brothers, and my youngest brother is a trumpet player and French horn player. So Conway and my little brother Jeffrey played together, and Conway is a younger brother. His name's Cameron, and Jeffrey and Cameron have played a lot together too. So it's really funny how like the people I met back in Worcester, who become good friends, now have traveled and followed down to Hartford, where I'm a senior now and Conway's a sophomore. So 2, 3, 4 years later.
Cool. And what kind of charts did you play?
So as a jazz pianist, I forgot to mention on drums that night was Max Meether.
Oh, okay.
Although also typically,
I think I met him before.
Yeah, Max
is he's blondish and
he's blondish. He likes to wear. He's got like the little peddler cap and a nice jazz scarf. But yeah, he's been playing with me somewhat recently, and also normally Josh Leslie, who's another great drummer. So it's the two of them have been alternating the drum seat for the time being. But in terms of the music we played. I write a lot of original music. We did some famous jazz standards, and I've been trying to incorporate music I grew up on in my trio. So a lot of people think I only listen to jazz and that's it, but that is far from the truth. I grew up in a house listening to bands like Rush, and Pink Floyd, and U2, The Cure, etc.
Word.
So on this gig I did a U2 tune.
Which one?
Crap. Of course, when I need to think of it, I can't. With or Without You.
Oh, okay, cool.
I did With or Without You, and there's a famous jazz tune called Poinciana, and so I kind of took the two ideas of that and mashed them together.
Yeah.
And I got a huge response from people. People really liked it because some people who were not familiar with U2 but were familiar with Ahmad Jamal, who made Poinciana famous, were like, oh my gosh, that was like an Ahmad Jamal thing. And people who didn't know Ahmad Jamal but knew U2 were like, oh my gosh, that was a U2 thing.
Yeah.
So it was super cool.
Yeah, I'm always fascinated by the idea jazz musicians have when they'll take a standard and then they'll like infuse like a pop tune inside of it, kind of like when Robert Glasper he did that Herbie Hancock tune Made in Voyage, and he like stuck Radiohead's Everything in Its Right Place inside of it.
I love that. I absolutely love that. I used to play that in high school all the time. But the funny thing that people don't always remember is that when jazz was the popular music of its day, they were playing their pop tunes.
Yeah.
The only difference is they just kind of expand them and make them their own.
Kind of, yeah. Because back when, I guess, in the bebop era, it was they were taking like the popular tunes like Back Home Again, Indiana, Honeysuckle Rose, and all that, and they were reharmonizing them into the bebop kind of flavor. Yeah. And that was them almost turning them into something almost not recognizable as the original tune, because there were so like all these like weird, really fast, complex chord changes like every 2 beats, and like kind of I wouldn't say mangling the melody, but like maybe soloing in a way that only occasionally references it. Yeah.
I mean, like, funny you bring up Back Home Again in Indiana, because the famous bebop version of that is Donna Lee, which is often referred to as the perfect solo.
Yes.
You know, and like that's the idea, is like taking these. Now I'm trying to look at it like, okay, it's 2020. You know, that music is all amazing and I absolutely respect it and I love playing it, but I also want to try seeing what things I have to offer, because like everyone has their own roots, and like my roots are in like classic rock, alternative, grunge music. Like that's what I grew up listening to. I mean, you know, but besides just like the other bands I listed, like Rush, a big musical memory for me, which I have had since I can remember, is the soundtrack to the movie Some Kind of Wonderful.
Okay.
Which is a John Hughes film.
Yeah.
Which is great. If you guys should all check that out. It is so amazing. All that stuff is like late 80s, early 90s, like, I guess like alternative rock, you know, really aggressive, angsty. And some of it's not like that. You know, there's a track on there, the famous Elvis tune, I Can't Help Falling in Love with You.
Yeah.
But done by like a Celtic folk band almost.
Okay. And a Dropkick Murphys kind of.
Not quite. A little more, not acoustic, but a little softer.
Oh, okay.
You know, like they have like the Irish frame drum and the penny whistle.
Oh, I thought you meant like Celtic rock, but you actually just meant Celtic.
Yeah, right. like Celtic folk almost.
Right, of course.
But like, that's the best way I can describe it, even if that may not be right. But it's like those tunes now are like stuck in my head, and those ways of doing things have now made me go, oh, how can I take the music that I know and my roots and bring them out?
It's funny you mentioned the arrangement you did with the U2 song along with the other standard.
Yeah, Poinciana.
I'm like the I'm probably the biggest U2 fan in this room right now,
Wow.
or at least before 2010.
Okay.
Because I would say U2 was like the band that got me into music.
Wow.
They were. I distinctly remember like the moment my life changed. I was I might have been 14, 15 years old. And I was sure I listened to music, and I like heard I was like listening to pop punk or whatever the hell.
Sure. Yeah.
And then at some point I picked up a U2 compilation called U2 18 Singles, right?
Yeah.
And then I started listening to it. I'm like, man, these are cool. And then I was like waiting for the bus, and I was listening through the compilation, and then a song called Where the Streets Have No Name came on.
Yes.
And then I was like, from the opening, this wasn't even the full track. It was like the edit for the compilation that was like maybe 45 seconds shorter, but it still had like the big grand opening with the synth bits and the shimmering guitar line fading in. I'm like, what the fuck is this?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, is this music?
Yeah.
What is this? And then like I got all the U2 records. I started listening to like, who were U2's contemporaries? Who looks up to U2? Who listens to them? Who did U2 listen to? Who inspired them? And then it was like the watershed moment that made me like become a music nerd.
Wow, that's amazing. I love that. Like, I mean, so I heard U2 growing up because of my mom, but I really didn't get into U2 until it's probably when they dropped that album Songs of Innocence.
Okay.
Which everybody got so upset that it was on their phones and computers, which I don't understand. I mean, I absolutely understand the idea of like that's your library and like if you don't want it, you shouldn't be forced to have it in your library. Yeah. But at the same time, in my opinion, I think that is really great music. And all they're trying to do is just, spread it around. So like I understand both sides of it, but I personally think it's a great album.
Okay.
But in that anyways, when I first listened to that, I was like, oh, this is really great. And then I went back and went, oh, their other stuff's really great. Like, yeah, I mean, the big album pre Songs of Innocence, which is probably my favorite U2 album, is War.
Oh, yeah.
I love that album.
I love War.
War and then the Joshua Tree,
of course,
are probably my two favorites. But like I had to work my way backwards, and it's similar. Like it's so funny that you were saying like once you found U2, you're like, who are their influences and who do they inspire? Because that was like me when I first discovered certain jazz musicians.
Yeah,
that was the first time I ever was like, oh my goodness, this person sounds like this person, and they're 10 years apart.
Yeah,
and so obviously, person X influenced person Y. And then, every jazz musician goes through a jazz snob phase. It would be
Wait, how do you mean?
Oh, man. I had a period, at least in high school and probably the beginning of college here, where I was like, if it's not jazz, it's not music.
Oh, okay.
And or also like, well, I know what's good music and what's bad music,
yeah.
which man, that's really funny because like, I don't think anyone can know what is good or bad music per se.
Yeah.
Because it's so subjective. Like what I think is great is not going to necessarily be what you think is great.
Yeah. In fact, I'm going to tell you up front right now, I don't really enjoy Songs of Innocence.
That's fine.
Yeah, but
I'm not offended by that.
I mean, like, cause I love all this stuff before.
Of course.
And then when I gotta tell you, I was probably the only person actually excited for that for that album. Like I was reading up like, oh, they're going to release it. It's going to be soon. And I'm waiting for it. And then they decide to drop it on everybody's phone.
Yeah.
And like I was the only person actually looking forward to having it show up on my phone.
Yeah.
And then I listened to it and I didn't feel it.
Hey, and everybody's going to feel it differently. Like that album just dropped at a point in my life where that music was what I needed.
Okay.
And I think that is kind of how we determine what music we like and we don't like. Cause like certain points in our life, we need certain albums.
Yeah.
I've been telling all my friends, I'm very grateful for my friend, Jackie, who I refer to, as Boots. She's one of my closest friends, since, freshman year here. And she transferred out. She's a fantastic visual artist, but she showed me this album by the band Mother called Oh My Hartt. And without that album last year, I don't know where I would have been for sure. Cause like I would listen to that album on repeat over and over and over again every day. Yeah. And like I was just dealing with a lot of different things. And that music just helped so much.
Yeah, of course. There's certain music you listen to at a certain age that it's there for you during that time, and you might not listen to it anymore. You might not even like that particular artist or whatever anymore. But it doesn't change the fact that it was a part of your life during that time. Like I remember back when I was like a preteen, I was only listening to Linkin Park. And it was like most of what I was listening to. So
yeah, every single musical experience I have is connected to me somehow based on the moments I happen to be living in that moment.
Yeah.
And that's how I try to look at it. So I was a jazz snob for a little bit, and that was really terrible, but it helped me like realize like the importance of like expanding the other genres.
Yeah.
And then after that, I started seeing this whole, so we talk about the lineage in jazz all the time. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, there's a lineage in every music.
Kind of, yeah.
Because, you start seeing these people influence other people. Like, for example, one of my favorite bands, Rush, within the past like 2 or 3 years, I was listening to their very first album with John Rutsey on drums. This is before Neil joined the band. And they sound like they're trying to be Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
Like Geddy Lee is singing so insanely high, and Alex Lifeson's guitars are so distorted and muddy. Like, well, not muddy, but like it's that Led Zeppelin sound that we all know and love.
The overdriven blues kind of sound.
Exactly. That's the best way to put it. I was like, oh my goodness. I started to see like the rock connection, and Rush, of course, inspired bands like a band I really like is Porcupine Tree.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And then you see all this stuff, these things across genres. Like singer-songwriter Joni Mitchell was heavily inspired by the jazz bassist Charles Mingus.
Yeah.
And then, you get into things.
In the mid-'70s, she went kind of jazzy with like Court and Spark and Hissing the Summer Lawns, Hejira, and even, probably her most famous album, Blue, which is not exactly jazz influenced, but it kind of nods at like the Miles Davis album cover kind of Blue.
Yeah. And I mean, there's an album she does later. I don't know a lot of Joni Mitchell's music because I'm just starting to dive into it, but there's one, I think it's
Is it the one where she does like jazzy arrangements of all of her some previous songs?
No, it's actually, she does versions of Charles Mingus tunes.
Oh yeah, wait, that one, yeah.
Yeah, that one. And the bassist on that record is Jaco Pastorius.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Who happens to be one of the greatest electric bass players to ever live.
Yeah, he played on her album Hejira from 76.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Because then he was also like in the Weather Report band. And so you see him you start seeing musicians popping up all over the place.
Kind of, yeah.
Like you see Jaco in like jazz fusion and like the singer-songwriter pop world. And then my favorite example by far is the great pianist Kenny Kirkland. Mm-hmm. So Kenny Kirkland, I'm sure he's a rather underrated jazz pianist. He came up playing music with musicians like the great Elvin Jones. He was even on like the Kenny Garrett album Songbook, which is Kenny Garrett's most well-known album. He played with Sting for like a solid 5-10 years in the 80s when Sting was just getting started as a solo artist. So those early albums like The Dream of the Blue Turtles or Nothing Like the Sun or The Soul Cages. Also that live album Bring On the Night, Kenny Kirkland. And unless you already knew Kenny Kirkland was, you wouldn't know it was a jazz musician because he just sounds so amazing. But you start seeing all these cross genre things happening. It's amazing.
Yeah, when you think about it, each, like you said before, each genre kind of has its own lineage, a history to explore. Like when you think about, how Egyptology is its own big area of study?
Yeah.
You could say every genre has its own Egyptology, its own big overarching, this like grand history of things to explore. Like just every single one has its thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think the most amazing thing is like each genre has it, but then like music as a whole also has it. We like to break things down into boxes, but the more and more I look at it, like the boxes just try to separate, divide people on what they like. Like some of my favorite music recently is this guy. I know he's a great jazz bassist, but he's also an amazing composer. And his music, it doesn't really have a category. Some of it can be improvised. Some of it's just written all the way out.
Yeah.
It's very cinematic in nature. This guy's name's Matt Eulery, and he just writes. It's amazing, and I keep running into more of this genre defying type music, like because like people's influences now aren't just like, you know, like you grew up in your parents' house and all you heard was like the Beatles or Bruce Springsteen. Mm-hmm. Now you're getting like, at least in my experience, I was like, okay, I'm at home, I'm listening to like Rush and U2 and The Cure and maybe Green Day and Coldplay, and then I'm going to school where we're gonna talk about and listen to jazz. And then I'm going to hang out with my friends who might be listening to like Nirvana. Yeah. Or something like that. And then I'm going to go, I mean, another huge thing. I was really fortunate that my family really appreciated the arts, and my aunt happens to be a professional violin player in Europe. So I went to a lot of symphonic and orchestral shows when I was younger. So like then at night with my family, I'd go see like an orchestra play Beethoven or Debussy or Mozart or something. It's just an amazing there's such an amazing diversity in different musical tastes even within a single area now, that people's influences aren't just limited to what they have at their parents' house.
Yeah, and as much as people like to know what a genre is in order so they can categorize whatever the music is, have their own place a schema onto it to figure out what it is. I find myself really gravitating towards the kind of things where I'm not sure what kind of genre to put it under when I'm like sorting out the digital files just so they can like be categorized somewhere in my library. Like the album that Chris Thiele and Brad Mehldau put out a couple years ago, that like, well, so Brad Mehldau is a jazz pianist, and Chris Thiele is, you would say he's primarily a bluegrass player, but he's still like, he put out an album of like Bach partitas and stuff, and he plays with Brad Mehldau and like other people putting together stuff that you think based on the instruments, yes, you would look at the lineup, be like, those are bluegrass instruments, but then what comes out is not quite bluegrass. And especially on that album, it's just called Chris Thiele and Brad Mehldau. You know, there's folk tunes like a Bob Dylan song, a Joni Mitchell song, some traditional tunes, I think, and like and originals that there's a mandolin, and so it sounds, oh, that's bluegrass, but then it veers off in a direction that's like, whoa, but that's not quite bluegrass though. It's a amorphous kind of thing, can't really define, especially with Brad Mehldau on the keys.
Yeah, I mean, I think my earliest experience seeing things like that was Carlos Santana and John McLaughlin, who is an amazing guitarist in the band, the jazz fusion band,
Mahavishnu Orchestra.
Exactly, the Mahavishnu Orchestra. And I was screwing around with my friends in a record shop.
And you found a copy of Love, Devotion, Surrender?
That's it. Oh man, yeah, that record. And I saw that and I listened to it and I'm like, this is like jazz and rock. And I'm like,
yeah,
whoa, this is crazy. Because like there's that song on that record that really did it for me. I mean, they do John Coltrane's Love Supreme. That's cool. The Life Divine.
Oh yeah,
was the track. I was like, oh my gosh, this is like, they're improvising, which is super cool, and like they're really getting into like their musical artistry, but at the same time, like they have all the elements I love from like rock music.
Oh yeah,
you know, and more as a composer and band leader myself, I'm like trying to not limit my influences to be like, oh, it has to be jazz. This has to be exactly like 1960s music, because we're not in the 1960s, number one. And there's so much other great music that came after that. I wrote this tune not a long time ago. I wrote it about 3 or 4 months ago. I was dealing with some frustration last semester, and I wrote this tune called Punching Bag.
Okay.
And I was listening to a lot of like indie rock / not quite punk, but like punk leaning, I'd say.
Okay.
So like really aggressive music. Mm-hmm. So I'm like writing all this stuff with like heavy percussive, piano parts, really fast driving. And it doesn't swing. It's just like straight in your face. Like, I'm an angsty teen and listen to my anger in your face, but yeah, like at this point in time, I feel like collaborating with anything or like hearing collaborations of musicians from different genres is so amazing because of that. You get to express yourself in ways that you never ever thought, because the point of music, at least in my mind, is to express yourself, whether that be emotionally or identity or whatever. and whatever your expression is valid, because there are obviously ways to always improve it, and I think everyone should always look for ways to improve it. That's why I'm here at school, but I don't feel like people should be locked in a box. Like, I must play this music this way,
right?
Just because of because that's the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously there are traditions in certain music that need to be respected, but there's the box and then there's the outside of the box.
Yeah.
And I want to explore that outside of the box.
Do you have any cool ideas that you have cooking?
So
in terms of incorporating other things into a jazz context?
That's a good question. I mean, at this point in time, just with what I'm doing, I'm trying to deal more with almost the classical side of things, which I never thought I would do, as someone who took classical piano lessons from age 4 and was about 7, 8, or 9 when I hate classical music.
Okay.
Because it's from, it's from a dead old white composer from 400 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm just this does not speak to me at all. And now I'm kind of maybe it doesn't speak to me, but there are things I can take. So per se, let's say, someone like Mozart, Bach, Beethoven, when I was about 9 to ages 15, I was like, this is stupid. I absolutely hate this. But
Bach is stupid.
But it really grew on me over time. And now my favorite classical composer, as most people well know here at the school, is Ravel and Debussy.
Okay.
Those are my 2 absolute favorites, because the impressionist musicians of the I guess, what is it, 20th century, right around the turn of the century in the 1900s. Yeah. It's so beautiful, very spacious music.
Yeah.
Very, very emotional and thought provoking. And now I hear all that movements, and now one of my newest things I'm working on is nonet. So my working bands right now, I have a trio with Conway and then Josh and sometimes Max. And I have my sextet, which features the trio plus 3 of my closest friends I made out at the Litchfield Jazz Camp over the past 7 years I've been there. This guy, Dakota Austin, on alto saxophone, Josh Walker on tenor saxophone, and Elliot Bild on trumpet. And now I've been I want to just keep composing and writing music. So I've been trying to write for a nonet. And it's not traditional. I don't know if you can have a traditional nonet, but I was all right, alto, tenor, bari saxophone. Okay, that covers reeds. And then I was trumpet and trombone. And then I said, let's add French horn.
Okay.
Which is, I told someone that and they were like, whoa. They did not expect that. But it just, my little brother's a French horn player, and I've heard a lot of really beautiful things come out of French horns, the sound of the instrument itself. And then to fill out the band, of course, piano, bass, drums. But now I'm incorporating things like that. I'm trying to write more things with strings.
Trying to go third streamy kind of.
Third stream. Yes, third stream music is beautiful and amazing. At the same time, I've been really trying to delve into I'd love to play more soul music, R&B music.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because that's super fun, and I have a lot of great friends who play that. I'd love to play more just rock music. In
an actual kind of rock and rolly kind of band you would play in.
Yeah, some serious musicians. I love Rush. Rush is probably my favorite band ever. Yeah, I keep bringing them up, obviously. Bands like them, bands Led
them, as in Van Morrison's band, them?
No. No, not this time. Electric Light Orchestra,
oh yeah.
All that stuff. I'd love to play that music just because, it's music I grew up on, and now I'm oh man, I'd love to play this more. Stuff like that. I'm trying to play more classical music on my own time. I'm just trying to start poking the fringes of things that I didn't think I'd like. What's really funny even sometimes is you find things that you didn't think you'd like that you would.
Yeah.
Someone really got me into, I have never been a rap or hip hop person at all.
Really?
It's mostly the family I grew up in. My parents really weren't into it at all. They're kind of they're this is garbage. And some of it is. So we have a lot. We are an oversaturated society.
Oh yeah.
We're getting thrown products designed for us musically.
Yeah.
They're like, here, this will sell. Whereas instead of getting things that are of a higher quality and that you find is more important to you. But anyways, like recently one of my friends, my good friend Tom, was just like starting to show me some stuff. And now I'm starting to check out more like that. Like my friends in high school showed me To Pimp a Butterfly, Kendrick Lamar record.
Yeah.
And that's the first time I ever remember going, I actually might like this.
All right.
So I think that record is very genius, and especially like, you got cats like Robert Glasper's playing keys or Terrace Martin is playing keys and saxophone. You got like this collaboration of, something that could be so commercially overproduced.
Oh yeah.
But it's not, because they work with all these musicians who are going to keep things acoustic and real.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of a tribe called Quest?
I have, and I know who they are, and I've heard a few tracks.
Okay.
But I really need to go sit and listen to them.
They're one of my favorite rap groups. Yep. It all started in like 1990, 1991.
Nice.
And they were the premier rap group trying to incorporate like jazz elements into their sound. Like they have a record from 91 called The Low End Theory. And it's very much a stripped down, really bare production style. Yeah. It's the drum, bass, vocal, and sometimes like just maybe a little bit of embellishing with like throwing some horns and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And just like all the jazz samples on there, and they even have Ron Carter on one of the tracks.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I do need to go check that out. I mean, I don't know have you ever heard of a group called US3?
No.
So US3 did this album, I think around probably late 90s. I forget what the name of the record is, but every tune is a sample from Blue Note Records.
Really?
Because I will always remember my band director in high school, Rick Kane, bless him. He's the reason I'm even still here playing music. But he was teaching me and my friends this Herbie Hancock tune, Cantaloupe Island.
Yeah.
And one of my very good friends, Ryan, loved rapping, and I think he still does. But I remember especially when we were in middle school and high school, he became very good at freestyling. And Mr. Kane went over to the computer and was like, all right, you guys are playing Cantaloupe Island, check this out. And it was this track, Cantaloupe. So Cantaloupe is like, it's also referred to as Flip Fantasia. They take the piano part of Cantaloupe Island, which is like, and they put a beat on top of it, and someone just like spits rhymes over on top of it, and it's amazing. And the whole album is like that. They take, I don't remember all the samples, but they take so many from the Blue Note catalog, and that was another moment where I was like, oh wow, this is kind of cool.
Yeah, I suppose when people look at me, they probably don't think I listen to rap music, and to be honest, I don't listen to a lot right now. I mean, I used actually before like YouTube blew my mind, I was really into listening to rap music, and I was really fascinated by Kanye West. Now, before you say anything, I like Kanye West up until 2010. I'll tell you that much. And probably my favorite record there from his early career that I would totally recommend to you is called Late Registration from 2005. Okay. Which the reason I love it so much is because it was co-produced by a musician I like, John Bryan, if you know who he is.
I don't.
He's this guy. He's a real big multi-instrumentalist producer. He scores films and stuff. He's been around a long time. He was in a bunch of bands in like the 90s. And so at least some of his films that you might have heard of, like Punch Drunk Love, Lady Bird, I Heart Huckabees, Magnolia.
Oh, okay.
I love him. He's the man, and he used to do this thing at the venue Largo in Los Angeles, where he would just, it was like a weekly thing, just this long ass residency where he just go to improvise a show, like literally no plan. And he's such a great musician. He pulls it off, and it's amazing. And part of it is like him like taking suggestions from the audience, like play Radiohead's Creep in a style of Fats Waller. He's like, okay, I'll do that. And
wow.
So he co-produced this Kanye West album called Late Registration, and part of what he brought to the table was arranging like chamber pop instrumentation.
Oh, cool.
Not only do I like that record because at least during that time Kanye West was likable during that time. He on his first album, The College Dropout, the year earlier, he was known as a producer first for his style was like pitching up old soul samples to make the beat, right?
Yeah.
And like that was all over the first record, and that was a good record. I love that record. But then he kicks it up a notch, gets John Bryan in, and he's expanding the palette to this grand, like lots of strings and horns and just really grand instrumentation.
Wow, that's awesome. Like, I do not know Kanye West's catalog at all. Just because, again,
me neither. Beyond 2010.
I mean, again, like it's like, the circumstances upon which we grow up lends itself to certain outcomes.
Yeah.
Like just like the family I was in was not about that. And also I grew up in a school district. So school district is 2 towns in central Massachusetts. And they're basically, one of them is definitely a farm town. The other one could arguably be a farm town. Although it's not as, what's the word? It's not as quite as agrarian as the other one. But I grew up with a bunch of kids. Not, I was maybe like sort of popular for maybe like kindergarten to 2nd grade. Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe. But like after that, people could definitely tell I had a different mindset, different goals, and not everybody would hang out with me, and that I think definitely part of that's on me. Like I'm very sensitive to people's responses, and so when I feel certain auras or energies off people, it changes how I act. But a lot of these,
or like you say hi and then go ew and walk away from you.
Oh yeah, that actually I think happened at least once or twice. But anyways, like, so all like the more popular kids were really into that music. And number one, I cannot lie. Like, I am very true to, or I at least hope to be as true to myself as possible.
Yeah.
I just could not get into it. I was just kind of like, I really don't like this. On top of that, since they all liked it, I was like, oh, since they like it, I'm just not going to like this music. Like that.
Yeah.
That's like things that happen when like, you're younger and in schools. Sometimes like people set you off that way where you're like, oh, you like this? Well, I'm not going to.
On principle, I'm just going to not like this.
Exactly.
Just to spite you.
Yeah. So like my thing, for better or worse, for a while was like, well, I'm just going to find like the weirdest, most obscure things to listen to. But like, that worked out my favorite because like some of that stuff's my favorite thing. Like one of my favorite pianists and composers of all time, this is a jazz guy, of course, is Andrew Hill.
Oh yeah.
Andrew Hill's like,
I love his album Black Fire.
Oh my gosh. I got that handed to me when I was in high school. I go to this record shop in Worcester and the owner knows me, and he started seeing, the first time I went in there, I bought Sonny Clark's Cool Struttin' and Mulgrew Miller's The Sequel. Yeah. 2 very different albums. And he looked at me, he's like, these aren't rap albums. Are you sure you want these? And I'm like, yes. and then he'd see me come in like once every month or so. And then he'd start giving me recommendations.
Right.
And his recommendations were always the craziest things I had never, ever heard of.
Yeah.
And I remember in one day, he put in my hands Andrew Hill's Black Fire, which changed my life, and Gratian Moncourt's Evolution, which also changed my life.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing about the Andrew Hill thing, which Andrew Hill has become a very big passion project to me. Like, I've transcribed most of his charts, and I own at least 20, if not more, of his albums on CD and vinyl, because he was so obscure that like showed me all these different other avenues I could listen to of things that people may didn't know.
Yeah.
Like while staying within jazz, my big thing for a while was like, how many obscure pianists can I find out? How many people are like underrated? And eventually it turned from being, oh, I want to find the weirdest stuff, to being like, why aren't these people appreciated for what they're doing?
Yeah.
Which has become amazing, because like now, in addition to people like Andrew Hill, one of my idols and somebody who I've had the great fortune to have spent a little bit of time with, I spent like a day or two with him so far, is the great Stanley Cowell, who's
Oh, yeah.
great, amazing pianist. And his music's amazing. You know, you get people like Herbie Nichols, you know, all these people, all these pianists in this case who are just really underrated. And then you start checking out other things because of that. And it opens up your mind. I have a love-hate relationship with my middle brother. My middle brother's name is Patrick. And one thing that I have appreciated about him more than anything else, especially within the last 5 years, is his taste in music. There's a lot of times I don't necessarily want to hear it because sometimes he gets stuck in like a certain sound. But when I'm ready for that sound and I listen to the stuff he sends me, I'm like, oh, wow, this is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like he was showing me like Neutral Milk Hotel, Aeroplane Over the Sea, which is amazing. And the one band I will never forget, never heard of them until he told me, but the band Big Star.
Oh, okay.
Which I was like, oh my gosh, why aren't these guys as well known? And, you know, he knows the history way better than I do and like why they didn't get as big as they should have. But like their songs like...
Do you think with an album called Number One Record, they would have...
Exactly. And, you know, like the songs on that record, like the one that always hits me the most, and this I think sums up the type of music, not exclusively, but the type of music my brother and I share with each other, was the song 13.
Oh, yeah.
13 is like, you know, a song that I really, really feel on an emotional level.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, it's like a naive high school ballad in a way.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's the line that will always hit me the most. And my brother and I have recently been talking more and more about concepts like this. But the line is, if it's no, I can go. And so basically the whole plot of the song is guy falls for girl, girl and guy date, dad disapproves, and then things end. But the thing I love about that statement at the end is, if it's no, then I can go. It's like that idea that I think sometimes eludes us of respecting other people's wishes and being respectful of people's desires. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, you know, like that music is powerful because of that.
Yeah. I think I found out about Big Star, and particularly that song, through Elliott Smith. Do you know Elliott Smith?
I know of Elliott Smith.
He's this singer-songwriter out of like the Portland area, Oregon. He was like this folk artist who got kind of big because he had a song in Good Will Hunting, Miss Misery. Okay. And a couple of his other songs appeared on the soundtrack. They even got arranged by Danny Elfman to play as orchestral pieces. Wow. And he's one of my favorites. He writes this stuff they're folk songs sort of, and they're kind of, but also they totally fit within pop and folk realms. But his ear for melody and the way he writes lyrics and the way he arranges songs is something. It's something else. Yeah. Especially with like Miss Misery. Have you heard the song? Maybe like in passing, or
if I have, I'm not aware of it. That's all.
It's in a waltz, and like there's two different bridges, and it's something haunting. It's really good. Oh. And he unfortunately died in 2003, and he's this person who like a lot of people I look up, I listen to, I look up to, keep going back to his material because it's so good.
Wow. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. But yeah, you run into artists like that who like touch you on an emotional level that you can't explain. Like someone else for me, I mean, Mother's a huge one. That Oh My Heart album just really, really, really got to me. But more and more between trading songs with my brother, like some other people who've really been hitting me deep in an emotional spot have been like James Taylor or Don McLean. Mm-hmm. That song Vincent. That one's a really big one for me. But yeah, then you see other things like there's a jazz vocalist who passed away way too early, and her name is Irene Krall, and she has this one album called Where Is Love, and it's just her and the pianist Alan Broadbent, who's another amazing pianist arranger. I believe he's done some film scoring and composing. It's just the two of them, and I have a playlist I refer to as my sad boy mix. It's not what it's called, but like, you know, People who know me.
Sad boy with an eye.
Sad boy with an eye. That's right, because I'm that much of a meme. I listen to Irene because it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
She's singing like a lot of jazz standards, but they're just like, it hits you in the heart. Like
yeah.
I think my two favorite tunes on that are, sorry, there's three. I forgot. Spring Can Really Hang You Up the Most, which is so beautiful in, the idea of spring in music being a time of renewal.
Yeah.
So spring can really hang you up the most. Like the idea that maybe you're going through a new beginning, whether it be romantic, personal, whatever, but like that time can really, really get you down. So that song is really beautiful. Never Let Me Go, which is another beautiful ballad, and the title really kind of speaks to the song. And then this medley of two tunes, Lucky to Be Me and Some Other Time.
Yeah.
And it's just sometimes when I'm just having a weird day and I just need to feel the emotions I'm feeling, I listen to that one in particular, that Lucky to Be Me Some Other Time, because it holds a special place in my heart.
Yeah. Whenever I'm feeling that way, there's this one record I go to that by Charlie Hayden and Hank Jones. It's called Steal Away from '95.
Oh wow.
It's Charlie and Hank doing a bunch of like hymns, folk songs, and spirituals.
That's so beautiful.
And it's just them, bass, piano, and they're all traditional tunes. Like their history within their respective traditions, plus the way Charlie and Hank arranged them, they sound soulful. That's what they are.
Yeah, and like another song another album you made me think of, and that's the same type of thing for me. Also, is there's a great flugelhorn trumpet player from Canada. His name is Kenny Wheeler, and he did this album called Angel Song. The band is Kenny Wheeler on trumpet and flugelhorn, Lee Konitz on alto saxophone, Bill Frisell on guitar, and not Jack DeJohnette, Dave Holland on bass. The story is Jack DeJohnette was supposed to be on the album, but for whatever reason did not show up. I don't know if this is true, but this is what I've heard. So the album is just trumpet, flugelhorn, alto sax, guitar, and bass, just a small quartet.
Yeah. And
those songs are, the thing about Kenny Wheeler's writing is it's so spacious and open. And for me, at least, his melodies are heart-wrenching. The song that always hits me hard is called Kind Folk.
Okay.
Yeah. These music is a beautiful outlet for all that. I've been talking with my brother lately about a number of things, but the one thing that we can keep constant between each other is like music.
Right.
And like, even if we can't necessarily relate to how the other's feeling, we can be like, okay, we're listening to this music because that's where our emotional state is right now. And that's amazing that you can be able to communicate how you feel in a song.
Yeah. I don't have many people to share music with. No one else in my family really appreciates music.
Yeah.
And no one else is a musician. But then sometimes I find myself not wanting to talk to people about music, because there are times when, a discussion about music can turn kind of like two people trying to fake impress the other one.
Oh,
and
like
then
name dropping. That's right. Oh yeah.
And then that kind of turns me off. It's like, I don't feel like doing that. And so I, more often than not, just, I spend time listening to music alone and wishing I had someone who could keep up with me.
Yeah.
Musically, if you know what I mean.
I do. I actually know exactly what you mean. Cause like, I hope this has not been taken as name dropping with all these people, because like when I say all these people, for me, the whole purpose is I'm like trying to show like, this is like the feeling.
Yeah.
And whereas like I've had so many people come up to me, like trying to flex on like how much music they know.
Like they're like dropping a stack of records in front of the clerk. Like, hey, check out what I got.
Yeah. And like you can still be like checking out a lot of great stuff, but not be like, oh, look at me.
Yeah.
I know so much music.
Yeah.
Like the way I just try to keep it like my friends that I hang out with a lot, or if like, something like this where someone just really wants to be like, we just happen to be going in on music, I'll just be like, I'll just start connecting random albums together.
Yeah.
Because for me, there's no logical correlation except for how I feel.
Yeah.
And how I feel brings up all these different albums in my head.
Oh yeah.
You know? So I know exactly what you mean, because also there are times as a musician where I'm just like, okay, I have had too much music today. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to see music. I just want to like, I don't know, like take a walk in the woods. That's like one of my big things I love to do. Take a walk in the woods.
Take a walk and listen to Benson's podcast.
Take a walk in the woods or go cook. I love cooking, or like, you know, if the weather was nicer, I'd love to go either bike or ski.
Yeah.
You know, two opposites of what it means for it to be nice. Snow is a beautiful thing, everybody. That's my hot take for the day. But yeah, I totally understand. Sometimes when you talk with people about music, you're just like, okay, you're trying too hard.
Or you might even catch yourself like, we're both trying too hard. This shouldn't be where it's going.
Yeah, and like I think there's a difference between, like, I personally felt like, you know, how we've been talking about music. I'm just like, oh, we're just like trying to like share all this crazy stuff and like make this crazy web of music. Yeah. Whereas some people are like, oh, I've heard that, but have you heard of this? And it's like, okay, I see. You're just trying to one up the person next to you.
Yeah. I suppose given our sensibilities, we have this encyclopedic kind of, I wouldn't say knowledge, but, okay, let's just say knowledge of music. At least I find myself really, it's all contained within albums, and that kind of, because that's kind of how we consume music now, albums, or at least for a bit we were. And that kind of, I love classical music. Yeah. Right. But the thing is, I haven't dove as deep into classical music as I might have liked to, because they didn't really release albums back then. So it's not really the way, it's organized in a way that doesn't exactly make sense to my album centric mind. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I mean, it's funny. Like I'm a person that, like, I buy the album. I know everybody on it. I know the date it was recorded.
Oh yeah.
I know
who produced it, who mixed it, who mastered it.
All that. Yeah, exactly. All that stuff. You know, it's so funny because a lot of my friends aren't like that. Yeah. And it just shows that there's not only is there a difference in ways people consume music, but I personally feel that there's a shift going on away from this sense of you need to know who's on the record and like where it was done or like the date. And I know that sounds like a lot of information for one person to know, but the more information you know about that, the more you can start to draw connections of like, I mean, Rudy Van Gelder is the greatest jazz recording engineer ever, in my personal opinion.
Oh yeah, totally.
I mean, his work with Blue Note Records from like the 1950s until he passed is ridiculous.
And a lot on like Impulse Records too.
I didn't know he did those.
I think so. Wow. That may be wrong, but
yeah, because I know all the Blue Note ones, because of course I know the Blue Note Records like the back of my hand. Yeah. But that wouldn't shock me either. I feel like I'm gonna have to go do my research again. Yeah. Because I don't know the locations as well. Yeah. I know like the dates and the personnel really well, and a lot of times most of the tunes. Yeah. But yeah, like you start to make these connections. But now I'm starting to see these people are like, all right, well, that's cool, but I'm consuming music by song to song to song, which I think is very interesting because it's harder to create. I find it's harder to create an image of an artist's identity if you go song to song to song to song rather than go like album to album to album. Yeah. Because musicians are like people. Each album reflects a snapshot in time. I love Rush. Rush is my favorite band ever. Yeah. But their album Hold Your Fire is not their best album. It's a great album, except for Tyshawn. I mean, I've watched interviews where Getty's like, we have no idea what Neil was doing. And then Neil even says, yeah, I have no idea what that was. But you know, like artists have periods of time occasionally where like they're going through either like a rough spot or like, they're just like, what the heck was that? Yeah. You know, or they grow and develop into a different entity altogether. Yeah. You know, like, I mean, I used to love Coldplay.
Me too.
And like,
In fact, there's a previous episode where I talk about how I used to love Coldplay.
oh wow, that's really funny. But like, I used to really, really love Coldplay, and like, there's the occasional modern track that I'll be like, okay, I can get behind this, but like, never a whole album anymore.
Yeah,
And that's just like a personal preference, obviously.
Can I tell you where I fell off? Maybe it's the same point you fell off.
Go for it.
So I love Coldplay up through Viva La Vida, right?
Yes.
And when 2011, when they put out Milo's I Loto, I'm like, oh, okay. Like, these singles are good. I like Every Teardrop is a Waterfall. And the one standout track that I really, really like is like Paradise. I think that's great. Right? But then I'm like, Princess of China with Rihanna on it. And then a bunch of other, I listened to it and then I'm like, this isn't gelling. It's not, even though there's like a handful of the singles I like. These are good tracks.
Yeah.
I find they are not worth the album. They're not worth listening to this entire album for those.
Yeah. I mean, I felt that way about the whole album. And like, and I don't mean that there were tracks I didn't like. Like, I loved Paradise.
Yeah.
Paradise was great.
Yeah.
And you know, like, I have a couple tracks that come after. The one I'm thinking of is, was Adventure of a Lifetime.
Oh, okay.
That track I like. I do not like most of that album.
No.
I like that track. You know, I know they just released a recent album that I've heard is like, it's swing backwards.
Yeah.
But I haven't actually sat and listened to the whole thing yet. But yeah, like, you know, for me, like, the defining Coldplay record in my head is X and Y.
Oh yeah, me too. Me too.
Know? Oh,
that's my favorite Coldplay record. Right?
Yeah, me too. And like, you know, it's just very interesting how you see the evolution of artists and bands, just like people. Like, you know, everybody goes through all sorts of different things, you know, different times, different periods of growth and development, and it changes how they sound.
Yeah, because when you think about Coldplay, when they first started out, they're very much like a guitar rock kind of band.
Yes.
With the occasional piano ballad and whatever. And especially on X and Y, you can hear there's a very guitar centric kind of sound, especially given, you know, one of their biggest influences is Radiohead, at least like 90s, like real guitar heavy Radiohead. And then, you know, you hear like doing more synthy things. Like there's a song on X and Y that samples a Kraftwerk tune. It's called Talk.
Oh, that's like the song. I was like, where?
Yeah.
I didn't know that they sampled that on there.
Yeah, they sampled a song off of the 1981 Kraftwerk record Computer World, I think.
What? Really? Yeah. Where's the sample?
It's the main melody.
That da-dee-ah.
Yeah, that's what it is.
What? My life has changed forever.
And then, you know, you hear like on Viva La Vida, they're probably the biggest single that people have heard from Coldplay who are not familiar with their early work is Viva La Vida, which is a very string-centric kind of song. There's barely any guitar in it.
Yeah. You know, like, and then that's the beauty of like development is like it'll change. And sometimes it grows into some things you like, and sometimes it grows in things you don't like. You know, I really like Radiohead, but like, I'm not huge on like their earliest stuff. Well, I
don't like Pablo Honey. I mean, it's not great.
I'm not a huge fan of Pablo Honey, but like for me, in my opinion, the record of Radiohead is In Rainbows.
Oh yeah.
That's my personal opinion there. I mean, I also really love, OK Computer.
Yeah.
And, Kid A. And even some stuff on Hail to the Thief. But for me, the album is In Rainbows.
Oh yeah, totally.
Also, I mean, there's a little bit biased because that was the very first album I listened to, and that for me that defined Radiohead to me. You know,
because my experience with Radiohead was like I knew about Radiohead.
Yeah,
I was like, I'm gonna grab some records. I figured, so the biggest one is like OK Computer. I'll listen to that one first. Put it on. I'm like, yeah, this is good, but I don't think it really gelled until I put on Kid A. I remember the moment I put on Kid A because it was. My impression of them was, hey, guitar rock kind of band. And then I put on Kid A. Everything in its right place starts playing. Everything stopped.
I know.
And I was like, what the hell is this? I got chills. I'm like, I listened through the record and like, I remember getting to the national anthem.
Yep.
Third track. And when the brass chaos starts on the back half,
Yeah.
I legitimately got scared. I got scared.
Yeah. Their music is crazy. I mean, I love, so the reason I even got into Radiohead in the first place, and this is like the first sign of me like starting to leave jazz snobdom, was I was in the Central District honors band my junior year of high school, under the direction of Jeff Holmes, who happens to be the director of jazz studies at UMass. So I was looking through the charts. It was like, oh, cool. Straight No Chaser, Buddy Rich arrangement, an original Jeff's 10 for 10, and then Body Snatchers by Radiohead. and I was like, okay, I've never heard of Radiohead. And I listened to like the arrangement, and I'm like, this arrangement's super cool.
Yeah.
Like, and then I listened to the original. I'm like, oh, wow. And I'm like learning the music for this rehearsal, and I'm looking at the chords and it says E Phrygian. I'm like, like, excuse me, what? Like, I of course knew what Phrygian was by that time, just because I'm a theory nerd. And like spent my summers reading theory books one summer.
Yeah.
But like, never had I ever seen anyone write a chord and be like, this is going to be a Phrygian chord. Every time I like heard about that, I'm like, that's some like weird stuff no one does. But then I saw it and I was like, okay, tell me more. And I started listening to their music, and I'm like, you know how like you hear bands and you know that when they're commercial because they have like the stock like chord cycles that go over and over and over in the same song,
cyclical chord progressions.
Exactly. And I listened to radio and I'm like, where are they going? And it was amazing because like they will hop into cycles, but then they hop out.
Yeah.
And the cycles are interesting. The cycles aren't just like 1, 6, 2, 5, 1. It's like they're just like hopping around.
Yeah.
And it like it makes sense, but in a quote convoluted way, unquote. I remember when I was doing I've done a lot of research on protest musicians.
Okay.
And how they've influenced other musicians, or avant-garde music and its influence on music of today. Charles Mingus is listed as a major influence of Radiohead.
Yeah.
And I totally hear it and believe it.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah.
You know, and that's amazing. Because like you start to see like these bands using these crazy harmonic devices that their predecessors aren't using because they didn't go back far enough.
Right. And
these guys go back far enough and start to be checking out all these interesting concepts. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah. And like, I think at least a few members of Radiohead are like fans of Steve Reich. And I think there was this thing where Johnny Greenwood was conducting this piece by Steve Reich, electric counterpoint guitar or whatever. And Steve happened to be there. And he's talking to Johnny. He's like, blah, blah, blah. He's like, all right, bye. And then he finds out, wait, that was Johnny from Radiohead? Like, he was like, he never would have considered Johnny was a rocker. And he ended up writing this thing called Radio Rewrite, which is like him taking everything in its right place and Jigsaw falling into place. And it's a 5-movement thing that's him kind of referencing the melodic themes of those two songs and like making his own larger composition out of it.
Oh wow, I love that idea. That's absolutely amazing. Wow. I also love when musicians aren't always who you think they are to be.
Yeah.
Because I met a number of musicians that like I meet them and I get almost disappointed.
How do you mean?
Like you know, sometimes there's a saying, don't meet your idols because your idols will disappoint you. But like I have found that to be both true and untrue. You know, you'll see all sorts of different people, you know, and we all have, of course, different definitions of the good. We could get into a huge philosophical discussion on that. But like I've met some musicians who were exactly what I thought they'd be in both good or bad ways. And I met musicians who are exactly what I never thought they would be, typically in good concepts.
Okay.
I mean, I've been very fortunate to have the first major jazz musician I ever met was a guy from my hometown. His name is Glenn Zaleski.
Okay.
He's not like a name you know, but like he plays with like Robbie Coltrane.
Okay.
And Tom Silverstein, and he's from my hometown.
Cool.
And so that became a mentor for a very long time. And like when I first met him, what amazed me about him was how humble he was. And like, he was just like super relaxed, super cool, very flexible. Like I'd email him and I'd be like, Glenn, I'm having an issue. And he's like, here's what I did. And he's like, I hope this helps you. And I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, you know, like for me, that was more than I ever would have hoped to have gotten from a mentor, especially when looking back.
Okay.
There are musicians I've met who have frustrated me and disappointed me. Like sometimes you just meet them and they're just they either rub you the wrong way or you rub them the wrong way, and then you're just in perpetual conflict with them. And then, you know, unfortunately that's just the way things sometimes are. But, you know, gotta keep trying to be the best person you can be to them.
When you first said that, I thought you meant as in meeting people in general, and like you find out they're a musician and then you're like, oh, we might connect because we're both musicians. And then you find out like they might not be what you thought they were. Yeah.
Oh, I've had that too.
Yeah. Because to possibly disappoint you right now. So I don't think we've talked before, but I don't think we've actually like got, at least I know right from the start that you're majoring in jazz studies and you're a pianist.
Yes.
But we met in that art of jazz class last year. Now I am a musician. We know that.
Yes.
But I don't think I'm pretty sure that you don't know that I'm not majoring in music.
I did know that actually.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Because I'm majoring in film and English here, and I'm trying to put together a music minor. That's what I'm trying to do here. My forte is guitar.
Yes.
And I wouldn't say I'm great, but I aspire to play jazz guitar. That's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I see you take lessons with my friend Sarah.
Yeah.
With Rich Goldstein, which is awesome because Rich knows so much about everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I did know that. But like my favorite thing is when like musicians, especially musicians who don't major in music, because you don't need to major in music to be successful in a career.
I definitely don't need to. And also I wouldn't be able to. I'm just because I consider myself a shit player, really.
Oh, don't say that. This is I always believe in like support your peers. You know, as many of my friends know, I'm very great at self-deprecating myself, but I never want to see people do it because I like to believe in people. You know, because like we're all just working to get better. But to that effect, though, I always love when I meet non-music majors who are so knowledgeable about music. And oftentimes great players, because like it shocks me and I get, oh my gosh, like you know, you know, I've seen a number of different people do that, and every time it amazes me in such a positive way. Like, I mean, I remember like when we talked once after one of those classes, our jazz classes.
I think you were at the piano.
Yeah, you came up and you said something to me, and it was like something about like a record or a theory, and I went, oh, you like know.
Yeah.
Because like
you were asking me like, have you ever heard of Empyrean Isles, the Herbie Hancock record?
And I was like, oh my gosh, that was like one of the first records I ever listened to. Yeah. I remember that because like that was crazy.
Yeah.
Because like I've actually, the other side of things is when you meet people from other schools who think that they're amazing.
Yeah.
And because they majored in music, and you listen to them and you're like, oh. You know, because I've run into that too. And there's times I'm just like, oh, you don't know. and like the way is then like you want to be like constructive about it because like no one ever wants to hear that they're bad, you know. And
I do.
I mean, like I have a certain way where I accept it. You know, we had a certain pianist come into Hartt within the past 3 years as to keep things anonymous.
Yeah.
Who his criticism was great. Once I could remove my emotions from it.
Yeah.
But in the moment, I was like ready to cry. like I take certain types of criticism very, very well.
Yeah.
Like, especially very constructive. Like, I like what you did, but what if you did this? I love that.
Yeah.
But I hate when people come up and like,
you do it wrong.
No, that's wrong. It can only be this way. I hate that.
Yeah.
You know, and so like, especially when I see people who I want to say something to, typically I really like to take my time and get to know them first.
Yeah.
To like figure out ways to give them feedback. I try not to give feedback unless one, someone asks me for it, or two, unless I think we're at a point in our friendship where I feel like I can say that without offending them.
Right. Right.
So that I think that currently is 3 people. Because yeah, not everybody wants to hear it, and I completely respect that, because also I am also just another perspective, which means it's a good and bad thing. 1, it's like another perspective to offer advice, and 2, it's another perspective to confuse you and or like hear things that you don't agree with.
Yeah.
And that's totally cool. I get it. So yeah, you know, like you can sometimes see both sides of the coin of musicians who excite you that or surprise you in amazing ways, and musicians who sometimes you just don't know.
Yeah, and well, at least from my perspective, I know it makes you sad to hear me say it, but like I know I'm not good. Like I realize I'm not good,
okay.
And also I'm not admiring in music to like impress people. I'm not aspiring to be a professional.
Sure.
I'm doing it because I like music and I like playing. And you know, I like to know what I'm doing wrong or what I could work on, because I know I'm not aspiring to be. I wouldn't say I'm ever going to be good. You know what I mean? That's the mindset I keep. Because like I never had any formal training. I started playing when I was 17. And I just know I'm probably not going to be playing in jazz ensembles and whatever the hell like soon. Sure. But, you know, I just want to be able to play for myself, to know like I'm working on this. I'm doing the best I can. I'm going to get good enough to please myself.
That's that. I have a lot of respect for that. Although the one thing I would like to say to you is like, don't say that you're never going to be good, because I tell my friends all the time, if you believe something in your mind, that only helps perpetuate the truth of it.
Yeah.
You know, because like, you know, I don't like when people tell me that they're bad, because I think that I see a lot of myself in people like that. Because I also like, you know, it's very hard for me to actually accept a compliment. I've gotten very good at being like, thank you, and like moving on, but like actually accepting a compliment, that's hard, especially when it's something you really care about and you know like what you didn't do right.
Yeah.
It's very easy to like, you got to find the balance between being hard on yourself, but also being like, hey, I actually did like okay today.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a hard balance to strike. And yeah, you know, like I think a big thing with a lot of, you know, many of my peers and friends is that mental block. Are you familiar with the book Effortless Mastery by Kenny Werner by any chance?
No, I'm not.
So this is an amazing book for any discipline. It doesn't matter if you're a musician or an artist or anything that you really care about. He talks about a number of different things, including fear-based, you know, practicing, performing, composing, writing. And it all goes back to like when you have someone breathing down your back, or these expectations that are set in stone, it's so easy to be afraid of failing or not meeting someone's expectations, that the way you practice or perform changes that.
Yeah.
And you know, it's a lot of this like coming to terms with yourself and that you are enough. It's like, it's a really great like self-realization type book in a way.
Self-help.
It kind of is a self-help book, but but like the best kind of self-help book. Cause like one of my friends lately and I have been having a lot of conversations about this. One of my favorite lines from this book is, who cares? It's like, who cares that you're another jazz musician? The world does not have a shortage of jazz musicians. Yeah. There's always someone else to take your place, which is like, when I first read that, I went, oh my God, is he telling me to quit? And then I went back and read it. I'm like, oh no, I get it. What he's saying is like, it really doesn't matter. You don't need to freak out about like everything you do. I think people think it's really funny. So I'm in the Hartt big band, and in rehearsal today, like I'm sitting at the piano, and in my rest, I'm like dancing to the music. And like when I'm playing, I'm like, boom. And I'm like cracking jokes, like musical jokes to myself, and laughing at things that people do or get wrong. But like the whole point of that isn't the, oh, haha, you got it wrong. It's the, I'm trying to enjoy the music. Yeah. Cause like, I think this is true with anyone. Sometimes people take themselves too seriously. Yeah. And then I try not to take music or myself too seriously, which is kind of funny, because then there's times I'm like laughing at things and it's like, oh, whoops, maybe shouldn't have done that. But like, you know, there's something to be said for, I'm a musician because I enjoy it and I've had so much fun playing music, that if I take this fear-based approach, that's going to take all the fun out of it for me. Yeah. You know? So there's a certain beauty to relaxing and being like, all right, we're going to play this music and I'm going to miss this note. You know, I'm as a composer, I brought in a chart today to my ensemble and I like missed stuff on my own composition.
Oh yeah.
And I'm just like, that's so funny. I can't believe I did that, you know, but I'm not being like, oh man, I can't believe I got it wrong. I am so dumb.
Oh, yeah.
I cannot play. It's now oh man, I can't believe I missed it. That's really funny. And it's like something I try to learn from, you know, like it's all in your head.
Yeah. I remember I was, last semester, I was showing Sarah a tune I wrote in electric.
Oh, Bad Lisa?
Yeah.
Okay.
As in the guitarist. Like when we were in the previous electric guitar styles course last semester. And Rich just stepped out a minute to like make copies of other charts. He's like, okay, I'm just going to be gone for a few minutes. You guys could practice something. I don't know. And then as he leaves, I'm like, oh, I can show you this tune I wrote. For one, I wrote that when I didn't know how to notate.
Yes.
So there are some things that don't look right, but also like I just kept fucking up on playing, like I was comping and I just kept fucking up. Like, this is my own song that I wrote. Why can't I do this?
I know, right? You know, I messed up. I wrote a tune and I got to hang out with that great pianist, Stanley Cowell. And I brought it into my lesson with him and I messed it up in front of him. I mean, he was so nice and sweet about it. He's like, oh, let me take a look. And he nailed it. And I'm just like, I had this right. I swear I had this right.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a certain nerves factor. Once you like show someone, like, I don't know about you, but no matter how much I try to be like, oh, I don't care what anyone thinks. Like, I'll go into like, there'll be someone I respect. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope he really likes this. Please love me. You know, but like, I totally get it. I had another lesson recently. I brought in a different tune to someone and I was like shaking at the piano and I was like playing it. And he's like, you know, like you can relax, right? Basically, he didn't use those words, but like
do relax.
But like, you know, I've had experiences like that. I mean, I do. And, I've done a lot of recording with people. And one of my favorite things is, I have this great mentor in the Hartford community. His name is Hanif Nelson. I'm in the studio and I asked Hanif to come record because not only do I really appreciate his guidance, but he's also a very good trumpet player. And so he's reading my tunes. And then, so the session goes like this. They play my melodies. I solo for a little bit. They play the melodies out and we end the tune. And at one of the end of the tunes, he comes to me. He's like, Andrew, you're not going to die if you don't get this program. You're not going to be a failure if you don't get into this. He's like, just play the damn music. Just like, you know, he's just kind of like, just play it.
Yeah.
You're here to play music with your friends, not to record, not to enter this competition. This is what you're doing.
Yeah. And
like getting out of that mindset and being like, okay, I have to play my tunes and relax. It took a second, but once I kind of like found my inner peace, found my happy place, I was like, all right, we're having fun. And then like I did another recording session a year later. And this is in November. Different people, but Hanif was still there.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember we were playing these tunes and I'm like literally playing things and I'm like, you're not gonna catch this, you know? And that's like just, I've become like this little gremlin almost, like when I play. It's like, I mean this in like hopefully the best way possible where I'm like, ooh, you think you got me? Oh, now I'm gonna do this thing that you're never gonna see coming. And I only do that with like people like I really know well and can be like, I got you, you know? But yeah, something to be said about learning to relax and just kind of not take yourself too seriously. Take yourself seriously, but not too seriously.
Yeah. You know? Yeah. I try at least now I try not to, you know, in the end, I'm doing it for me and I'm just doing it because it's fun.
That's beautiful, man. That's what you should do.
Although that doesn't really quite work if like I have a grade depending on it.
Well, okay. So, that's a good point. But like you can find that middle ground of I don't have these illusions of grandeur of what I'm going to be, but like I want to like still learn to play music at a higher level than I'm at now.
Yeah.
So something like that.
Yeah. It's dude, how you don't have anything to do after this, do you?
I do have to go buy groceries at some point,
Oh, okay.
but no, nothing particular.
Because I think we have, I think this room, I booked this room until like 5:30. So I mean, we could keep going if you want to.
That's up to you. I'm here.
Actually, this is on the longer side of things right now. So.
Oh wow.
But, yeah. Oh, were you able to check out the show? Listen to a few episodes?
I have not yet. I've been so swamped.
Okay.
With like I went to bed at 4 a.m. this morning.
Oh God, why? What are you doing?
Well, I was practicing till 2.
Oh God.
And then I got some pizza, and then I had to clean. Then I had to clean my room.
Okay.
See, I'm trying to be a responsible person. It's just being responsible means that you don't get a lot of sleep.
Yeah.
You know, that's the one thing I've learned. Is like, I was like, all right, we're gonna go to bed. He was like 4:30. I'm like, great. And I'm like, my alarm goes off at 9:30, and I'm like, oh God, please no. But I had to get up because I had big band at 11, and I knew that between actually dragging myself out of bed,
Yeah.
taking a shower, eating breakfast, forgetting all the many things I have to do in the morning per se, like this morning I was trying to fold my laundry and make sure I have clean stuff to wear.
Yeah.
Printing out my new chart. I guess that was it this morning. But then making sure I did all that, coming to school for rehearsal, I knew I'd need at least that hour, and I was almost late still.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, you know, so unfortunately I've not listened to it yet, but I do aspire to. It's just like, yeah, there's so much.
I'll tell you this: what you could do is after we're done, you listen to it in the car.
Oh my!
On their way to the grocery store.
What a plan!
And also listen to it while you're shopping for groceries.
That's a genius. That's a genius idea.
Also, by the way, when we were setting up to do this,
yes.
For one, I felt like there was a bit too much back and forth. It felt like we were annoying each other.
Oh, really? I didn't feel that. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so annoying.
No. I mean, no. I felt like I was annoying you.
Oh, no. I was just kind of like, it was more me going like, am I actually free? I mean, I had to go out and buy a planner.
Yeah.
Like about a month ago, because I accidentally double booked myself for 2 gigs, and I felt so bad.
Oh.
One of them was with a very good friend of mine, who's an outstanding vocalist, and another is with like a local band who's very good, but was a very prominent gig. Okay. And so I had to pick between the two, and I'm not sure how I picked, but
Google Calendar can be your friend.
Oh no, Google Calendar failed me this time. Google Calendar has almost always been my friend. But I've had this issue between my phone and my laptop not syncing up.
Oh.
So now the idea is I still use them, but I also have a paper copy.
Okay.
That way, like, the master list is in the paper copy.
Okay.
And it can't get screwed up by syncing errors or,
okay.
Let's say the Google cloud just somehow disappears.
Yeah.
Which would be a disaster.
Yeah. But also, I'm in our email conversation.
Yes.
I think we had agreed on a time to meet. And then you're like, okay, see you then. But then I was like, we don't have a location.
This just shows like what kind of person I am. I'm just kind of like, oh, we'll just do it wherever, you know? Like I had
we'll do it in your car.
I mean, like the funniest thing is I had a lesson with a great musician up in Boston, and I'm like getting to Boston. I'm like freaking out. I'm like, oh man, I'm late. He's gonna be so mad at me. And like, I like called him once I had parked, and I was like, I'll be there in just a few minutes. He's like 4th floor, 4E. And so this is at Berkeley, and there's like 5 different buildings.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, which building am I going to? You know, and
the main one.
That's so funny. Cause like, and it wasn't the main one.
Oh, okay.
And the funny thing is like, you know, you say this, and I'm like, oh wow, I really am turning into a jazz musician. It doesn't matter where. We just kind of like say a general location, and that's good enough. Yeah, no, that's really funny. Yeah, I sometimes do that. I'm just kind of like, all right, let's hang out, and I'll be like, all right, 5:30, great. And then like 5:30 rolls around, we're like, where are we meeting? I mean, that happens a lot.
All right, let's rehearse. When? 4. Okay, bye.
Like,
wait, where?
most rehearsals are like, most rehearsals from here are like, we're going to show up to Hartt and we're going to hope there's a room free.
Yeah.
And then we're maybe going to text each other which room it is.
Yeah.
And if we forget, maybe we'll call each other or maybe we just won't have it.
Yeah.
And that'll be fine. But,
oh, God. But you found this place all right. Yeah.
Well, it's so bad. I was so glad you texted me because being the scatterbrain that I am, like I didn't schedule anything, but I was about to just sit down with someone and talk about some stuff. And then you texted me on, oh my gosh, that's right. Just because like I'm just so scatterbrained sometimes.
Wait, that's right. I agreed to this thing.
I know. It was super lucky I was still on campus. And then I like walked over and I went through the email chain and said English department. I'm like, I'm pretty sure we didn't say this. And then I got lucky that I went back through. I was like, maybe he texted me and I found the room. And then I was like, all right, GSU 120. And I walk up to like the Moe's down here and then like, I see the first room, like, okay, this says 2, wrong floor. And then I come down and I walk past every single club going, where is this room? Until I finally see student government says, oh, 120. I'm like, oh, that's where this room is.
Yeah.
Because like I spend all my life in Hartt. And if I'm not in Hartt, I'm in like Hillier.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Or is it Auerbach? No, the one with the new Barney edition.
Auerbach.
Auerbach. Those are the only 2 buildings I've been in for academic classes.
Yeah.
So like I get very lost when I'm not anywhere besides Hartt. and by lost, I just mean I'm meandering, just not knowing like what I'm looking for. You know, I could get my way through the buildings well enough, but I wouldn't know where
anything is.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Like if you were telling me like, oh, you know, go to this guy's class. Like if you gave me a room number, I might be okay. Might be. It just like, it depends.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was thank goodness Hartt and GSU are close together.
I was getting concerned because like I had a class that ended at 3:20 today.
Okay.
Right?
Me as well.
And it was at Auerbach. So I'm sprinting here and it takes time to set up the equipment. And then it's like 5 minutes out, 4 minutes out, 3 minutes out. I'm like, is he coming? And then of course, you know, at 3:29, I text you, hey, I'm all set up in the room.
I was like, oh man, that's right.
The thing is, I didn't want to say, hey, are you coming? Because that insinuates now I'm expecting you not to come. So I try to play it a bit neutral. So like, hey, I'm all set up because
I appreciate that so much because like every now and then, like I tell people all the time, sometimes I just need the reminder that I'm supposed to do something.
Yeah.
And it's like, as soon as I do it, I'm like, oh, that's right. And I like run past the guy I'm supposed to like hang out with and talk. And I'm like, I'll call you later. And I'm like, I have to go do this thing I already said I'd do. And like I try to always honor my commitments like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, I can't believe I forgot. I feel so bad. And I'm like, so sorry. I like had you worried for a second. I was like, oh my goodness, I'm so dumb. You know? Oh, but c'est la vie.
Yeah, I guess that's a good place to end on. C'est la vie, guys.
I guess so.
C'est la vie. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on, Andrew.
Oh, thank you so much.
I hope it was fun for you.
Oh, I had a great time.
And by the way, I've been trying. Have you seen Matt lately?
D. Champlain?
Yeah.
That's like my hero. I see him every day.
Well, I've been trying to get him on the show. I don't think he's been seeing my emails.
He is extraordinarily busy.
Okay.
Well, he has a second baby on the way.
Okay.
So baby number 2 is due by the end of the month.
Oh boy.
So things right now are very hectic. He's been subbing out all sorts of things.
Oh, okay.
To myself and others. So I know if he's not responding to your emails, it's because he's crazy busy.
Oh yeah. Because I contacted him last semester back when the show was starting up, and he told me like, at least he responded to me. He's like, sorry I missed it. I haven't been checking my emails since like the actual semester started. And he's telling me my schedule's just packed to the max, maybe next semester.
Yeah.
And then I tried to contact him, but based on what you're telling me about how busy he is, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. He's one of the busiest people I know, and one of the sweetest, most kind and caring people I've ever met.
Yeah.
But yeah, hopefully you can get him on, because he is an amazing brain to pick.
Oh yeah. All right.
Yeah.
All right. I guess we're done.
Cool.
I'm hoping this fan, I can edit it. I can get rid of that in post.
Well, if it's a frequency that's low enough, you can do like a high pass filter.
Yeah, I usually high pass anyway.
Nice. That'll probably, hopefully.
But these are dynamics, so I think it's not like the fan's here, right over the mic. So it's not. I'm pretty sure it's not going to be bad. Yeah, but it'll be fine. But it's been cool talking to you. Yeah,
it was great talking to you too, man.
And maybe you're going to graduate.
I'm going to graduate in May.
Maybe I can get you on just one more time before then.
Oh, if you want me on, and I can make it work.
Cool.
Sure. I know. Yeah, we talked a lot about music. I was like, oh damn. I was like, oh wow, that's really funny. Yeah. Just because, I love, I talk about music with so many people. It's such an interesting thing. I was coming on, I was like, oh man, I have no idea what we're going to talk about. I was like, I have a feeling we'll talk about music for some of it, but I didn't expect us to go so crazy. Yeah. It was great. I loved it.
And sometimes I tend to not I try not to talk about the thing people they expect that person to talk about.
Yeah.
Like last week, I was talking to an English professor who he's a poet.
Yes.
And he's a director of creative writing. But we got so much into different things that there was literally a second of him mentioning he does poetry, and then that's it. If you weren't paying attention for that second, you wouldn't even know he was a poet.
Wow. Because for me, the easiest thing for me to do always is I relate everything back to myself. Yeah. And typically the easiest thing is music, nature, or experiences I've had. Yeah. So I'm big in that. Yeah, nature's huge. But no, that was really fun. I really enjoyed it. Cool. I hope that was good. I have no idea what you were looking for, but I hope I was able to help out.
That's exactly what I was looking for. Just a touch.
Perfect.